These are the absolute worst people to be a tyrant to. Allah accounts the debut of both Yahya and Isa in the Quran, both of their earthly debuts. They're both named before they arrive. They both have a wide variety of qualities that are mentioned with their arrival. So let's look at them. Number one, Yahya, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, وَحَنَانًا مِن لَدُنَّا وَزَكَاةً وَكَانَ تَقِيًّا. Hanan means love. And so Yahya is loved by Allah, min ladunna, وَزَكَاةً, and purified. So that's number two. وَكَانَ تَقِيًّا, and he has taqwa. وَبَرًّا بِوَالِدَيْهِ, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, and he is dutiful, kind to his parents, and he is not Jabbaran asiya. He's not tyrannical and disobedient. Cool? So we've got four qualities for Yahya. He's loved, he's purified, he has taqwa, and he's good to his parents. As for Isa, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala later on in Surah Maryam, when Isa makes his debut, Isa is the one who kind of announces, he's not kind of, but he does. He's the one who announces his qualities. So he says, I'm the servant of Allah. That's number one. Atani al-kitab, he gave me the book. وَجَعَلَنِي نَبِيًّا, and he made me a prophet. وَجَعَلَنِي مُبَارَكًا أَيْنَمَا كُنْتَ, and he made me blessed wherever I am. وَأَوْصَانِي بِالصَّلَاةِ وَالزَّكَاةِ مَا دُمْتَ حَيًّا, and he enjoined on me prayer and charity as long as I'm alive. وَبَرًّا بِوَالِدَتِي, and he made me dutiful to my mother. So Isa alayhi salam introduces himself to the world, his earthly debut, with 7 qualities. And what are those 7 qualities? Really quickly again. So he's a servant of Allah, he's given the book, meaning that he's a messenger. Yahya, there is no book that's given to him, he follows the book. But Isa alayhi salam, he says, I've been given the book, and he made him a prophet, and he made him enjoined with prayer and charity and goodness to his mother. So we see with these qualities that none of them are explicitly shared, the qualities of Yahya and the qualities of Isa. Now, of course, many of them are implicitly shared. So they both, of course, share taqwa. They both share being loved by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. They both share prophethood. They both share prayer and charity and all of these types of things. But as far as if we're looking at the words that the Quran is listing and highlighting in that moment, in those passages, what is the one thing that is shared by both of them? Kindness to their parents. Yahya, barran biwalidayhi, he is kind to his parents. And Isa alayhi salam, barran biwalidati, he says, and kindness to my mother. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, and we did not make him, or he says, and we did not make him Jabbaran asiya. He is not Jabbar, tyrannical, disobedient. And so, and Isa alayhi salam says, and barran biwalidati, and I am dutiful to my mother, and I am not Jabbar shaqiya. I am not Jabbar wretched. What does Jabbar mean? Jabbar is one of the names of Allah, right? What does Jabbar mean? Jabbar means to compel. Jabbar means to compel. And so a tyrant is called Jabbar. Why? Because they compel people. They don't let people do what they want to do, right? And so Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, when he's al-Jabbar, that means that he's the compeller. I didn't choose the way that I look. I didn't get to choose my parents. I didn't get to choose the year that I was born. I don't get to choose the year that I die. All of this is Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala compelling his servants, okay? Also, there's another beautiful meaning of the name Jabbar, however, which means the one who fixes that which is broken. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is a Jabbar. He fixes our brokenness. When you have a broken bone, what do? They force those bones back together. And that is a manifestation of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala being al-Jabbar. Even a cast, it's called a Jabira because it forces your bones back together. And so it's fixing your brokenness. So I don't want you to think al-Jabbar is just, it's a scary name of Allah. It can be, of course, it's indicating his power, but at the same time, it's a beautiful name of Allah because it indicates him fixing our brokenness. That being said, when it is a human who's called Jabbar, it's not a good thing. I had a friend who called me and he's like, I want to name my son Jabbar. I was like, don't do it. Listen to me. Don't do it because it means tyrant. And so the worst people to be Jabbar to are your parents. The worst people to be Jabbar to are your parents. We see being negated from both Yahya alayhi salam and being negated from Isa alayhi salam. And when Zakaria is being told that Yahya is not Jabbar, and when Isa is announcing in front of his mother as she's holding him that he is not Jabbar, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala knows best, but this could be part of the assurance that these parents are getting. You know, I have a friend of mine, he has a son and he's got a daughter. And I called him up and I was asking him like, you know, how's your son and stuff like that. And he said to me, he's like, listen, Ammar. He's like, my son is 4 years old and I am already certain that there is nobody in the world who's going to cause me more grief than this boy. He's like, he's 4 years old and I'm scared of him. He looks me dead in the eye when I tell him to do something and he goes, no. He's like, I know that there's nobody who's going to cause me more trouble than this son. And inshallah ta'ala, his son's not going to cause him any trouble. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala make it easy for him and for all of us. But I mean, that's Zakaria alayhi salam's been making dua for this child, and he finally gets this child, and he's receiving that assurance from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala that this child is not going to be a difficult child for you. This child is not going to be a challenge for you. This child is not going to be someone who's going to cause you to stay up at night and going to cause you to pull out your hair and cause you to... No. This child is going to be someone who is not Jabbar. They're not going to be tyrannical. They're not going to be compeller for you. Because the worst thing is what? The worst thing is your parents give you their life source. They give you the best years of your life, of their lives. And when they reach old age and now they're in need of you and you're at full strength, that you use that strength that they gave you, you use that body that they nourished to compel them and to abuse them and to harm them and to be tyrannical towards them. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala negates it from Yahya, and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala negates that attitude from Isa alayhi salam. Maryam alayhi salam is being assured that this child of hers that she has is going to be a source of comfort for her, a source of tranquility for her, a source of kindness to her. And I need to be honest, there's a scene in the Bible that we as Muslims don't accept. And even though it might seem subtle, and you'll find that people are, very ready to kind of interpret it in different ways. Isa alayhi salam, or Jesus, is sitting at a wedding with his mother. It's reported in Mark, Matthew, and Luke. And his mother comes to call him, and he's talking to his disciples. And his mother and his brothers, or his siblings, his half siblings, Allah knows best if Jesus had half siblings, but his mother comes and she's calling him. And the disciples say, your mother is calling you. And he says, who's my mother? Who is my mother? Who are my brothers? These are my mother and these are my brother. Whoever does the will of God, he is my brother and my sister and my mother. Like, this is not appropriate, not just for a prophet of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, of course, but it's not appropriate for someone like Maryam alayhi salam to experience. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala negates that in the Quran when he describes Isa alayhi salam as saying, وَبَرًّا بِوَالِدَتِي, and I'm dutiful to my mother, I am kind to my mother. That's not the image that we get in the Quran of Isa or Yahya. Yahya is described as not Jabbaran Asiya, Jabbar that is disobedient. And Isa is not described as Jabbaran Shaqiya, someone who is a tyrant or someone who's a compeller, who is wretched. Kindness to parents is the middle gate of Jannah. It's the middle gate that leads a person to paradise. It's so profound, it is so powerful an act that Umar ibn Khattab radiallahu anhu, he said, by the one in whose hand is my soul, if a person committed murder, and murder in Islam is the greatest sin other than committing shirk, other than worshipping other than Allah. There's no sin that's greater. Umar ibn Khattab radiallahu anhu said, if a person committed murder and their mother was alive and they were good and kind and dutiful to her, I would hope that that person would not be touched by the fire. Meaning that it is a deed of such great stature in the sight of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, that even a sin as great as murder, Umar radiallahu anhu hopes that that kindness to the mother would erase that sin, would erase the effects of that sin. The question, however, that always gets asked is, when you say kindness and dutifulness, Yahya alayhi salam, for example, is being described as walam yakun, and he was not. Yahya alayhi salam is being described as not Jabbar or Asiya. He's not a compeller, nor was he disobedient. So the idea of obedience is also infused in this notion of birr, of kindness, okay, to your parents. There is an element of obedience. So what does that mean? Do I have to obey my parents all the time? Like, I gotta obey them with everything? The scholars actually, categorized obedience in very beautiful ways. Okay, so I want you to draw a little chart here. I want you to, lay this out, inshallah, and come up with different ideas as well in the comments. You can come up with different scenarios. We can try to answer them and figure them out. But it's important that you have this clear in your mind. So they said the first category is when they tell you to do something, not doing it will harm them, and doing it will not harm you. Okay? They tell you to do something, not doing it, if you don't do it, it will harm them. And if you do it, it won't harm you. The answer to that is you have to do it. What's an example of that? An example of that is your dad says, he says, go to the store and get me my medicine. Him not having his medicine harms him. You going to the store doesn't harm you. It's not like he told you to go to the store right when you have a flight that you need to catch. You going to the store is not going to harm you, because then it would harm you. Then you have to figure something out. But it's not going to harm you. If that's the case, you check those boxes, check that box. It will harm them if it's not done. It won't harm you if it's done. You have to do it. Okay? So that's scenario number one. I hope that's clear. The second, they ask you for something. It won't harm them if you don't do it. They don't need it. And at the same time, it won't harm you if you do it. So let's say, for example, you're doing well, you've got some money, and your dad says, I really would like to have a new iPhone. Please get me an iPhone. Or he says, go get me an iPhone. Right? It costs like $1,000, for example. You can afford it. It's not going to hurt you. Okay? Or something less significant than that. It's not going to benefit them or harm you, but they ask you to do something. Then you have to do it. Why? Because pleasing your parents is obligatory. Pleasing your parents is obligatory. It's not going to harm you. It's not going to harm you, and it's not going to harm them. Cool? And it's not something that they need. Okay. Then we have category number 3, which is it is going to harm them if you do it. They ask you to do something, and it is going to harm them if you do it. What do you do then? So your dad is diabetic, and he says, go to the store, please, and get me my favorite double chocolate cheesecake. Go do it right now. Listen to your father. And you're like, dude, dad. I said dad, I said dude, I meant dad. That's what I meant, right? But you're like, dad, like you're diabetic. I can't do that. That's not haram, right? Like sugar is not haram. But guess what? If it's something that's harmful for them to do, then you can't do it. If it's something that's haram, that's clear. Like you don't even need to think about that. Your dad says, go get me cigarettes or something like that. Your dad says, go get me alcohol. Like, no, that's haram. It doesn't matter. You can command me all day. You can command me till the cows come home. You can tell me that you're not pleased with me. You can tell me all of that type of stuff. But that's different. Okay? So haram is easy. That's an easy category. But I'm saying if it's harmful for them, right? It's sugar, it's this, it's that. Then you don't do it. You can't do it. Okay, so we're still talking about benefit and harm when it comes to the parents. What about if it harms you? So now we're in number 4, if it harms you. If it harms you and it will benefit them, then you don't have to do it. So for example, your dad tells you, son, I need you to lie on your tax return. You're making too much money, you're gonna affect my taxes, my household income, you're gonna affect my tax return. I don't know. I need you to lie. You're like, no, hold on a second. I can't commit fraud. I can't do that. Or your father tells you to do something that is going to be out of your own interest. A father comes and he tells you, I want you to divorce your wife. I want you to marry my cousin's daughter. You're like, I can't do that. I've got my own kids. I love this woman. Like, I can't do that. Right? So they are asking you to do things that will harm you, and it will benefit them. He gets to, I don't know, be a part of the family group chat on his other side or whatever it is that he was going to get done, right? So then that gets thrown out. You don't have to do that also. And then the 5th, of course, is if it doesn't benefit him and it will harm you, then you don't do it. Could just be a random idea that they have, something that they want to do. It's not really going to benefit them, but it's just a suggestion. It's just something that they're excited about. So these are the categories, and there are lots and lots and lots of scenarios, obviously, that you can see. But as long as the categories are clear in your mind, inshallah, you'll have the understanding of what birrul walidain actually requires. It's not a scenario where you just have to obey your parents unconditionally no matter what they've done, but you have to be kind to them no matter what. So in all of these circumstances, there's no excuse for a person being mean or cruel or vindictive with regards to their parents, but kindness is still required. The obedience part, however, that's conditional on all of these factors. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala knows best. See you in the next video.